Hello and welcome to the Kuriaknits podcast. My name is Erin and I am so glad that you've joined me here today. It is actually a decently sunny day outside, which is surprising because we just had 3 snowstorms in a row, which is a lot. It was a lot, and it has been a reflection of my soul because it has been a bit of a rough go, if I'm being honest with you. Yeah, it's not something that's really mine to talk about, so I'm going to leave it there. But so say if it feels like I've disappeared from the internet for the past little bit, I have a little bit, and it's just been a time to be alive, but we are working through it. I've actually given myself the past 2 days off, which was lovely, just to kind of catch up on life things, and yeah, and now I had like a big work thing due and be done, and now I can actually focus on my actual PhD, which is lovely. And I feel like things are looking up ahead of us, but it's just been a time, and I feel like the decisions I've made regarding my knitwear very much reflects that perhaps I'm not making the best and most sound decisions in life. You may have seen from the title that I am now on 4 test knits, and that is all I have to show you today. And you may be thinking to yourself, but you had so many whips. Yeah, don't look at my Ravelry page. It's a disaster. It's a page of shame, and I will get back to them. There were just so many opportunities for just beautiful test knits, and I applied to them and I got all of them, which is not something that's typical. I'm very confident I can finish all of them, and I'm going to do them in order of the due date and talk a little bit about the testing experience for each of them. It is 4 tests for 3 different designers, 2 of which I've never tested for before, and people are always interested in hearing about the testing experience of specific designers, so I'm very happy to chat about that. Yeah, and then my plan is to basically finish all these tests. The first one is due next week, and then once I'm done these tests, I'm going to get back to the whips, and then that will be a close on my winter knitting, I think, for this year. And then I will be switching into more of a spring knits. Not to say that I don't have spring knits in these. Obviously, now is the time that testers are coming out with more of their spring summer tailored knits. And I am testing, I guess, 2 officially of spring summer patterns, but one of them I think I'm going to adapt once the test is over into more of a winter sweater. But that said, I'm very excited for this spring summer. I plan on doing a video about what patterns I'm looking forward to making this spring summer. So if you have any patterns that you're excited about, please leave them in the comments below. I'd love to take a look at them. And you may have noticed that I did the same for last fall, and you may have noticed that that video has been privated. I am just not pleased with some of the choices that I made. And some of you have kindly let me know in DMs that some of the designers, specifically drops that I was promoting, have had a lot more controversy that I was unaware of. So thank you for that. That video has been privated, and I'm going to make some better videos in the future. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that I can get back to once a week. I've got so many videos ideas that have kind of been on the back burner while I figure out my life. And I'm really hoping to get back to them. So hopefully I will get those videos that I've been talking about for a long time out to you guys soon. But yeah, I am wearing my Riento. This is my second Riento in Standard Lena in the black color. I will say I like this one less than the white. Sorry if you hear some like crunching noises. My dog is getting onto a beanbag chair, as he is wont to do. He likes to like settle it all down first and then really settle into it. I did not realize that because this is knit at not so loose of a gauge. It's knit on 4mm needles, which I think is recommended for this yarn, but it does create decently airy fabric, especially with it being linen and cotton, that kind of blend that because I am so white, it's very much see-through on me, which is fine in the summer, but the other one, because it is excuse me, closer to my skin tone, it doesn't look nearly as see-through. So I think I just need to be mindful about where I'm wearing this. I probably won't be wearing it to work as I do the other one, and yeah, so I haven't gotten too much wear out of it. I mean, it is still winter, and then I'm just wearing that with the thrifted cardigan. So not doubling up on the knitwear today, guys, but I hope that is okay anyway. So let's get into the whips. I have only whips to share today because, again, I am on a 4 test knits and I've thrown all my other knitting to the side. But I feel like I've made some decent progress on each of them. So my first and most pressing, sorry, I'm losing my voice here. My first and most pressing test knit is one that I had shown you last time, and it is the Lucia sweater or pullover. Looks like this. It is stunning, and I am working on the sleeve, which has a beautiful pattern on it. So this is a drop shoulder construction. You can see that in the back. And yeah, I'm working on the sleeves. So this is due next Wednesday. It is Saturday as I'm filming this. And Sari Nordlund, for most of her test knits, all that she requires is that you finish the yoke, which is done, and one sleeve, which I am about at the halfway point. I'm at 50 stitches. I'm anticipating it being at 90 to 100. Not stitches, sorry, rows. If it was only 90 stitches, I would have finished a long time ago. This is a beautiful pattern. I talked about it last time, but when I had first seen this, I was a little so about it. I thought that it looked too much like DNA, and I was making like a science themed sweater. But I don't know what had given me that first impression, but the more that I saw it come up on my feed, the more I was like, actually, I think that's beautiful. I think the cables are so intricate, and I think it's one of the most difficult patterns I've ever done. So I think that the amount of love that I'm putting into this has made me adore this sweater even more. Like, the middle cable, I think, is my favorite, but I just think it's a beautiful design. The sleeves have the more DNA-ish of the motifs down the sleeve, but thankfully that is the motif that is easiest to memorize. So I am able to do these sleeves without looking at the pattern, which I cannot do for the body. The body is like a, I don't know how many rows it is. It feels like a lot, maybe like a 40 row repeat, and it is many stitches across. So there's just no way I can memorize it. And the main reason I can't memorize it is because this cable in the middle I find very difficult to do intuitively. The rest of it I pretty much have down. Now that I've done it a whole bunch, especially those parts on the sleeves, they're quite easy to memorize, and so I'm able to do these sleeves in the round pretty quickly. I have switched over to DPNs. I started on small circulars, but I just prefer DPNs when the sleeve starts to get a little bit long, because I don't have to keep on turning my work. I basically hold it like this, and then I work around like this, and then I go back and I work around again. Whereas if you're working in the round, you can't really achieve that. You have to keep on like taking your sweater and turning it, and that just annoys the heck out of me. So I prefer to work on DPNs. The only thing that I need to be wary of is because my circulars are metal and my DPNs are wooden. I would love to get metal DPNs, but I would ideally like them to match my needles, and my needles are Chaogyu's, and Chaogyu DPNs are heckin' expensive, and these are the Amazon wooden DPNs that I bought when I first started knitting, and I have not switched from. I actually really love these. I love working on them. I love that if I lose one, I could buy a whole other set for like $20. I've linked it in the description below. If you are looking to, if you're not sure you're gonna love DPNs, if you're looking to just get a cheaper set of DPNs that are reliably good, I would highly recommend it. I am still using it 2 years on. I find that the tips are decently sharp. I've never had a problem with it. And I've never had one crack on me, which I think is really impressive for especially the price of these things. I mean, they're not going to be like my dream DPNs or those Cubics ones. They look like they'd be so satisfying in the hands. I would love to get a set of those. But until I'm willing to invest in like my perfect DPNs, these are just amazing for me. They come all the way from like a 2.25 millimeter sock weight all the way up to a 10 millimeter. So you can get a huge selection of them for only $20, and this isn't an ad, but I'm just like obsessed with them. And the only thing I will say is that I would be weary of doing socks on them, just because I've never had any of them snap, but I don't think I've ever worked socks with them. And I would be worried that the 2.25s get a little bendy. And I would be a little bit worried about those ones snapping just because they're so thin and it's wood. So it's tough to like maintain that stability. And I don't know how the more like luxury brands do it, and maybe they reinforce it somehow, but these I know are not reinforced in any kind of way, so I would just be wary of that. But if you're looking for affordable DPNs, I would highly recommend these wooden ones. I use them all the time, especially these 4mm. I use these to death, and I have lost one. I'm down to 4, which is fine because I only ever need 4, but I know if I ever lose another, I will just be ordering another set because I'm obsessed. And it is nice to have needles that you don't have to be as precious with. The rest of them, I've never lost, I don't think, any other knitting needle. But for some reason, DPNs just kind of have a tendency to roll away, and then you just don't ever know where they went. Like I had lost my 5mm for the longest time, and I just found them the other day. And they were like in a drawer. And I guess I thought I'd put them there for safekeeping, but they were not safe because I did not know where they were. But anyways, this is the Lucia Pullover. This is due in like 6 days. No, 5 days. No. Yes, 5 days. So I have some time, and yeah, and then I'll be finishing the body. So this is going to probably go on the back burner for a little bit, but then once I get back to the rest of my whips, and this will be one that I'll be going back to. I don't want to hold this for too long because the pattern is quite complex, and I feel like I'm a little bit on a roll with it, and I don't want to kind of forget the rhythm of it. So I'll probably be working on this in the background of a lot of other things. But yeah, and I won't talk about the yarn too much because I've talked about it in previous episodes, but I am knitting this in Blue Sky Fibers wool stock worsted. They come in these chunky skeins, and they are one of my favorite wools of all time. So I would highly, highly recommend getting some of this as well. And I have some in charcoal. Do I have it to point out to you guys? This guy, can you see that? So I've got some more to work with in the future, which I'm very excited to have some in my stash. I had intended to work the charcoal before I worked this and before I worked the green, and it just so happens I found projects that suit these better. I keep on going back and forth as to what to make with these charcoal. At first I had in mind a really chunky not chunky, but like the cables would be chunky, like a chunky cabled sweater. But now I'm feeling like I really need a black cardigan in my life, so I might end up making a cardigan with it. But let's move on to the second test knit, which is the newest test knit, but it's actually due 2 weeks after this one, so it is my second due test knit. And the reason for that is it is another, Nordlund test. And I saw it, and I think it's one of the most beautiful designs I think she's ever come out with. And so I jumped on it because I was like, I need that. I was like, I already have 3 tests, and this is where my decision making can be a little bit questionable in this regard, but I was like, you know what, I have the yarn for it, and you only have to finish the yoke in a sleeve, and it's a short sleeve garment, so I don't think it should be very long, and the test reflects that. I think we were only given 3 weeks to do this test, which I don't think is typically long enough, but she's not asking for too much done. So I don't know, but if I was a larger size, I'm knitting this in the size 3. I'm typically a size 4 in Nordlund tops. The Lucia Pullover I'm knitting in a size 4. I believe this is the size 4, but this one had a decently generous ease to it, and so I'm knitting a size 3. And this is the Kaarina Tee. Oh my goodness, look at that cabling. It is so stunning. I am so in love with the way that this is turning out. I've had this sitting on my desk so I can stare at it while I'm working. It has been the knit that I'm most likely to reach for ever since I signed up for it, which was about a week ago I think I got on the test. I mean, I'm trying to be like, oh, I can't prioritize it because I've got other things going on, but I just love it. I love the color. I love the way it's looking. So I hadn't intended to make it with this yarn when I first signed up for it. I had signed up for it. I have had, let me grab it actually, gray We Are Knitters cotton in my stash forever. And I think this is actually a really nice cotton. I don't know if I'd purchase it again, but I've had this in my stash forever. I had bought a cotton cardigan pattern from them when I first started knitting because it just seemed like a good company to get some like higher quality yarn in a good pattern that I didn't really have to think about it. And I got the garment and I had started it and it was seamed. And I didn't know it was seamed, and the idea of seaming a cotton garment, I was like, I'm not doing it. So I ended up frogging it, and then I've had this yarn in my stash ever since, and I have quite a lot of it in my stash because it was a cardigan. So I've got 6 or 7 balls of this stuff, and I had made a Ayasta cami, but it was one of those failed camis from last year. So I also have that sitting in my stash ready to frog. So I've got a ton of this cotton, and that is what I intended to make this with because it was kind of sold as a summer pattern. And then my KFO Ukraine sale yarn came in, which I will show in the acquisitions. It's the only acquisition I have, but I will show one of the items that I got here because I have knitted into this. So I decided that as part of the order, I would grab the beloved Dusty Artichoke Pure Silk. And it looks like this, and it is stunning. I just grabbed 3 balls of this. I decided that I was going to try again to make a summer cami. I was picturing something like the camisole number 4, which I had attempted to make last year and completely failed. And I was like, you know what? This Dusty Artichoke color would be lovely. I know I adore the knitting for all of Pure Silk. I've made other garments in it, and my favorite way to use it is actually to mix it with a merino or a cotton. And I think it just makes the most beautiful garment. But I was like, you know what? I'll hold it on its own. It'll be fine. I will have a beautiful camisole at the end of it. But then I received it, and I realized as I was looking in my stash for something to make this with that it almost perfectly matched with my skeins of stress knits yarn and eucalyptus. Like, look at that match. Can you believe that? I couldn't. I was like, these are made to be. I still can't believe how well these suit each other. So I had bought this on a whim. This is Stress Knits Yarn. She is a YouTuber that I really love as well. I'll link her channel along with like the information below. And I had bought this in her favorite base, which is an 80/20 superwash merino nylon blend. And this is in the color eucalyptus, and it was really the color that got me on this one. I am not so much of a superwash person, but I will say this is one of the nicest superwashes I've ever gotten. I am not one to buy very often from indie dyers, just because I don't love a lot of variegation in my yarns, but this does not have a lot of variegation. The only variegation that it really has is it has beautiful, I don't know if it's going to come up on camera, beautiful specks of blue throughout this color. And it is honestly stunning. And it has just a little bit of a sheen that really suits the silk really well. And so I am adoring the way that they are knitting together. I could not have picked a better match. I'm very happy with my pairing skills with yarns here. And you can see just a couple, maybe on the top here, of those blue flecks coming through, which I think is just stunning. It brings a little bit of interest to it. And whenever I see a blue fleck coming through, I try to, usually unsuccessfully, but to like bring it to the front. So I really want it to show. But it means that I am making not so much of a summer garment. I'm making much more of like a winter t-shirt. And so if I have enough yarn, I might try to, I don't think I'll have enough to make it a long sleeve, but if I do have enough yarn, I might extend the sleeves. The sleeves in the pattern are like a short sleeve. I might extend them to more of a 3/4 length sleeve. And I think it would make a really, really beautiful top for work or going out. And I'm really excited to see what I can do with it. But for the test, I'm going to do the sleeve as written, just because that's what I said I'd do, and I want to fulfill my testing requirements. So I am almost done the back panel here. I have maybe about an inch more to go, and then I can pick up along the sides. It is knit in construction wise almost identical to the Lucia Pullover, which is kind of nice for me because I am familiar with that. I just did it, and so there isn't a lot of surprises. But I will say this pattern, I do have to look at it, but it is much, much easier than the Lucia Pullover. It is pretty intuitive. I do have to keep an eye on it. It's not a mindless knit by any means, but I think I think is just stunning. I am so happy with my choices on this. I would highly recommend pairing the Knitting for All of Pure Silk with just like anything else. And the cool thing about it is that this held double is what the sample was knitted in. So that is also an option. I just didn't purchase this yarn with that in mind. I might have actually bought another 3 skeins of the Knitting for All of Pure Silk in with this to make, to see what that kind of top would be like to knit it in the intended yarn. But I had already gotten this order when I signed up for this, so I couldn't have done that. There is a shop or a couple shops in Toronto that do sell KFO, and I definitely could have went and gotten another 3 skeins, but I am honestly happier with the way that these are coming out, and I'm so excited to see what the finished object's gonna look like. So that is due 2 weeks from the other one, and I have no doubts that I'll be able to get that done. Yeah, it is my preferred knit right now. I love knitting on it. The feel of both yarns in my hand is also really pleasant, and I just love watching this pattern kind of come together. And it's just like, it's just itching all of those good places of an amazing pattern, an amazing set of yarns, and just super enjoyable to knit. So if I love it, maybe I will end up making another one in just cotton with that other cotton, because yeah, hopefully the rest of it goes as smoothly as this back panel has, because I'm just obsessed. So this next one is also one that you've seen before, and it is, I'm kind of in an awkward spot to show you here. It is the Oolong Tank by Aimee Sher. Are you seeing the lace? So there's like a big lace panel at the front, and then the rest of it is just in stockinette. That was something that had originally bothered me. So when the tester call came out for this, she had the tank top on a mannequin, and you cannot see the back of it. And I thought that that back panel would go on the back and the front, and it only goes on the front, and it initially bothered me. Now knowing the pattern well enough, I think that if it also bothers you, there is a way to adapt the pattern to make sure that it goes on both sides. I don't think that would be very difficult, but the back and the front aren't identical, so you would definitely have to do some not math necessarily, but just some like imaginative work of how you would want that to look. But having knit the pattern, I actually think that I like that it's just in the front much more than I thought I would. Now, I had actually gotten a lot farther on this pattern than as it appears. I had finished the whole body, and I had done the whole front of the camisole. But I was then measuring it, and I tried it on and held it up to myself, and it was so short, and I could not figure out for the life of me why it was so short. And then I measured the body, and it was like 2 inches shorter than it was intended to be, and so I had to rip it all back, and I had literally no idea how I managed to do that. So basically, I have to knit this section, this like body section, so it's knit bottom up. I have to knit this body section until I reach a specific amount of inches, and I was 2 inches short of that, and I was like, how am I this bad at measuring? Or did I just not measure and look at it and be like, oh yeah, this isn't the number, but like that's 10 inches, that seems right. And yeah, I feel like a bit of an idiot. I was ripping it back, and I was like, okay, this is my penance, because I have literally no idea how I did that. I will say that the front goes super fast, so I wasn't upset at all. And on the one side, I know I had messed up the lace a little bit, and I had to do some surgery to fix it, and it looked a little wonky. I'm sure it would have came out in blocking, but I'm kind of happy that I get to do it again, because I just like looking at it. I think it's a beautiful lace pattern, and the way that it comes up in the straps, I think it's going to be, well, I know it's going to be gorgeous, but I am excited to do it again and do it a little bit better. So I'm knitting on the body. I've got about an inch to go now. I feel like a bit of an idiot, but I'm happy that I caught it without doing the whole back panel, because the whole back panel's in stockinette flat. So there is a ton of purling on these needles right now. There is about 300 stitches because it's on a fingering weight yarn. I had to size down on the needles, so I have these on 3mm needles, and it is no joke. And purling that much is no joke. And as you may know if you watch the channel, I am not an enthusiastic purler. I guess we'll say that. It is not my favorite thing to do, and yeah, so I feel like the front panel went fast. Looking at the back panel, I think it's going to be a bit of a slog, but that's okay. I've got about four or 5 weeks until this is due. It is due 2 weeks after the Kaarina Tee. So they're all kind of 2 weeks after each other, which I think is good because it just keeps the momentum going, you know? Don't get stuck at any one pattern. You just keep it going. I don't have much else to say about this pattern. I'll probably have more to say once I finish the sleeves, but I am knitting it in the Kurian Deluxe organic cotton, which I am enjoying. It's a quite thin cotton, and I picked this up at London, and I would definitely pick up some of this again. It has some beautiful colors. I've actually used this in the yellow color to make my yellow ranunculus, where I paired this yarn and the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk, and I think that they're a really good match. So that is another combination I would recommend. You have to use for that t-shirt, I used 2 of these and 3 of these just based on the yardage of them. I think I have 6 of these. I think for that tank top I'm only going to end up using 4.5 is what my guess would be, but I have a feeling that that back piece is going to take a lot more yarn than I think it's going to, just thinking about it. So that is my guess anyway. But yeah, it's really been enjoyable to knit. It is, however, I think the knit with the smallest gauge I've ever knit on, and it is not my favorite gauge to work on, especially because I've kind of put myself in a corner here. I'm craving something with a bit of a bulkier weight, especially in winter. All of these are on 4mm needles or below, so I don't know quite how I've done it, but it is, I think I prefer to have a little bit more variety in what I'm knitting on, because I am definitely feeling it a little bit in my hands, and I almost wish I hadn't done this to myself right before summer, because summer you tend to work in smaller gauges in general, and so I feel like I've done all these projects with smaller gauges right before summer, and so I'm kind of screwing myself from the satisfaction of working with a bit of a thicker yarn. I would say 4.5 is probably my sweet spot of where my hands like it the best, but I love to have a mixture of like 3mm to 6mm on my needles. I think that's where I thrive, but having all of them between 3 and 4, I feel like my hands are just craving something a little bit thicker. And I know I've got whips that are thicker, but I need to focus in on the poor decisions I've made for myself. It'll be great once it's over, but I feel like for now, I feel like I put myself in a box. You're working on these 4 things until they're done because you have obligations. And maybe that's what my brain needed. It's just some obligations to focus my energy a little bit. But it means that I have more in my brain to think about of the things that need to get done. So one more test knit, and then we'll move on to acquisitions. This last test is one that I just signed up for last time I filmed the podcast. And it is from a designer that I was previously unfamiliar with. I actually saw this test. Someone else had posted it on their page, like reposted it on Instagram. And I looked at it, I was like, that is actually stunning. And that is something that I've been wanting in my wardrobe for a long time. So I applied on a whim and I got it. And I'm very glad that I did. I think it's a beautiful design, but it's definitely a newer designer. And some of the pattern writing reflects that, I would say. So I have a little bit more to say about this testing process. I didn't talk a lot about Aimee Sher. I've caught one thing in that pattern and it was just like a formatting note, but everything else in that pattern has been near perfect. And Sari Nordlund, I have not caught anything in either pattern. I feel like she sends to testers pretty much completely done patterns. I think someone else had caught one thing in one of the other patterns, but I have not caught anything in either of those patterns, whereas this one is just an interesting format for a test. So let me show it to you first. So I'm at a bit of an awkward spot here. So this is the back panel, and this is one side of the front that I've completed. This is, I think, pretty well complete. I might have one more row to go on this before I separate and do the other side. So it is a really, really beautiful cabled / just like knits and purls to create this beautiful patterning here. And it also has a polo neck. So this is the Freddie Pullover by Chen, and she had created a beautiful polo pattern previous to this that I was actually aware of, and I didn't clock that it was the same designer until I was looking at her Instagram page, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would love to test, or I would love to knit that. And I feel like this is very similar to that, but without all of the funky colors. I'll try and find it and leave it on the screen. But I think that this is going to turn out just beautifully. I really love the way that it's looking here, and I think it's going to look even more beautiful when it's all like, because it's a lot of ribbing, it kind of scrunches together, but once it's all pulled out, I think it's just going to be stunning. I did have to go down in needle size for this. I'm on 3.5s, I believe, and it was intended to be on 4s. So part of the problem of me having everything between a 3 and a 4 is my own fault, because I've had to go down in needle sizes on almost everything. My dog is walking past, don't mind him. He is going a sniffing in my office. Yeah, I found this really enjoyable to knit. I had to do the start of the back piece like 5 different times because for whatever reason, and I look back on it and I think she wrote it fine, I just was not grasping it, and the short rows were not working out for me, and I was the only one that had that problem. But she's doing the test in a way that I have never experienced before, and to be honest, isn't my favorite. She has a Slack group, which is great. It's good to talk with people. I love seeing other people's knits come to fruition. Aimee Sher also has that. I feel like I'm losing my voice here, so I should wrap this up soon. So she's doing that, and then she has a Google Drive, which is very typical, where she has a PDF to download, which is not as typical, and she has a Google Doc where she's noted every single problem with the pattern that people have found. And so usually how I've seen other designers do it, and the way that I prefer, is they have kind of a pared down version of the pattern that they give to testers without images and things, and without all of the fancy formatting, that you can make comments in the document saying, hey, this is not ideal for this reason. Whereas in this version, you download the PDF and you're working off the PDF, and if you see something, for example, there was an incorrect symbol in one of the cabling charts that I had found, and so I had to cross-reference with the document to see if anyone else had caught it, and then if someone had, but if it hadn't, then I would have had to message her in the Slack channel. And so it just seems like you're jumping from thing to thing to thing, as opposed to just commenting on the actual pattern itself, which is my preferred way of doing tests. Now this is fine. This is probably easier for Emily, which is, I mean, fine. And as testers, like, we don't really have a say in the way that it's formatted, but I just have found it a little bit more difficult to give feedback because I'm looking at the PDF, and then also she's reissued new PDFs. So if I download the PDF, I also need to be cognizant of, do I have the most updated PDF so that if I find something, I'm commenting on the right thing. And so it's a whole, it's just, I feel like there's just more to think about with this pattern. But I will say, once I've gotten on a roll with it, I have memorized this chart super easily. So once I got on a roll, it's pretty easy. The only thing that I'm a little bit worried about is the collar is double knitting, which I've never done before. So that'll be a new adventure for me, but that is in my future. And I think it's going to be a beautiful pattern. I think once it's released, it's going to be fantastic. Emily has been lovely to work with, but I will just say it's not my favorite form of, or method of giving feedback, I would say. I would just prefer it was all in one place. So that's my only note about that. But I mean, different designers have different processes, and if this is what works best for her, then that's absolutely fine. I am working this in West Yorkshire Spinners Fleece Blueface Leicester DK, which I got in England in another London yarn store, which I can't remember the name of, but I've been holding on to this forever. This was actually used in another Sari Nordlund knit, and I just didn't love the pairing. So once I had done the test for her, I ended up rocking it, and I'm now using it for this, and I much prefer it for this sweater. There's a little bit of variation in this, which I was worried wouldn't play well with the cables, but I think because the cables are so minimum, there aren't many cables, so I think it's fine, and I really, really love this wool. I would definitely consider picking some more up when I am back in England in July. I'll be back in England in July. So yeah, I mean, I feel like one of the things I'm most looking forward to being back in England is getting some beautiful British wools, but I think I'm going to be going on like a backpacking backpack to make it easier for myself, so we'll see how much I can actually fit. I might be mailing some yarn back to myself. But I'm going to close this up because my throat is not cooperating, but I'll quickly show you my acquisitions before I say goodbye. So I had decided to place an order with Knitting for Olive because they had done their second Ukraine relief sale. So they had donated 100% of their sales for that day to a charity which was supporting Ukrainians in the war in Ukraine, which I think is incredible that they're not just doing profits, they're doing the 100% of sales. So I, for the second year running, have decided to support them in this. I was unbelievably impressed with how fast they got out these orders. It must be a huge volume for them. I got a shipping notification within an hour of replacing the note, within an hour of placing the order, which is unbelievably impressive, and it got here within 2 weeks, which is also impressive and a huge win for me. I did not get charged customs on it, which the last KFO order I did get charged customs. I got charged like $20. So I think it's a bit of a like luck of the draw as to whether you get customs charged on KFO orders. I believe technically you're supposed to in Canada if your order is over $100, and this one was, but I guess I just got lucky and I needed a win this past week, and this was it for me. And I decided to get, finally, the color Rust. So this is, the top is their merino, the bottom is their kid silk, and I don't know what I'm going to make for this. This will probably be a fall knit for me, but I have been wanting to get something in their color Rust for a long time. I adore it. I've been a huge fan. So yeah, I'm excited to make something with these. I have gotten 6 of each, which should be enough for a sweater for me. And yeah, I don't quite know what I'm gonna make. I might end up making just a, oh my gosh, the Knit Pearl Girl release a sweater in this weight. I will put it down below, but that is what I'm thinking at this moment. We will see, just like a simple raglan, but I just adore these colors and I think they will be perfect for fall. I love looking at them. So, and that's all I got other than the pure silk. So I'm going to close it here. This is a bit of a fast. I was going to talk a little bit more about life and things, but my throat is not cooperating with me right now. I'm going to grab some water. I'm going to grab something to eat, but I hope you are all having an absolutely amazing week. I hope you all have an amazing week ahead of you, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Bye!